How do we level up? How do we level up when we aren't surrounded by people who are pushing and encouraging us to get out of our comfort zone? David Goggins would say, it's up to you. And in the age of knowledge and emerging AI, the opportunity to level up is all around you. You just have to decide. Welcome to the Mind Game. In this episode, we continue to explore the question, what are you learning? And we dig into a book I've read and touch on one that I'm currently reading. And if you're listening to the podcast, you are already stepping in to the level up. We are going to explore the book Never Finished by David Goggins. And if you love a good story of hard work, determination, and a relentless pursuit of what's on the other side of adversity with an in-your-face intensity, this is an author for you. In this episode, I'll share a bit about David Goggins, overview the book, and share a few of my favorite quotations. We'll wrap this episode up with a quick look into Jim Kwik's book, Limitless. So how do we level up? We choose to get out of our comfort zone, to step beyond the familiar and learn new things. The ultimate level up is when you decide to take action on what you've learned. Are you ready? It's time to level up.
Welcome to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. My name is Stephanie Painshaw, and I'm excited for you to join me on a journey behind the scenes where we'll dig into the stories of resilience, mindset, and unlock the simple habits that will help you change the game. Before we dive in, I want to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your energy powers our quest to provide content that encourages you to unlock new levels of personal growth and step out of your own comfort zone. If you're inspired by an idea or have a suggestion for a future topic, connect with us at mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Your feedback is a power-up that helps us continue on this epic adventure. So if you're ready to get out of your own way and explore what you didn't know you needed to know, you've come to the right place. So buckle up, open up your mind. It's time to level up.
So what I said I would talk about in this next part of the podcast, one of the books that I finished. So I told you a book that I'm currently reading. That was Your Big Leap Year by Gay Hendricks. That's one I'm reading every day. Super easy, bite size. You can do that. You can practice those lessons. One book that I did finish, and he is a master storyteller. He is someone who lives the life that he talks about. He's not just someone who talks the talk. He genuinely walks the walk. And when we say walk the walk, we're talking ultra marathon. He is retired Navy SEAL. And the person I'm talking about is David Goggins. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of background on David Goggins. I first came across him as a motivational speaker through one of my favorite apps. And if you're curious about the motivational app that I use, drop a comment, send me a message, join the Facebook group, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I'm going to start sharing some of my favorite motivational talks. Because when I go out at lunchtime, what I do is pop in a motivational talk. They come with music in the background so that I can walk a little bit faster. And I'm always learning something. And those are some of my favorite walks when I get to listen to the motivational app or listen to an audiobook. So this is an audiobook that I finished. I listened on Audible, but I first listened to David Goggins through the motivational app, and he would have really short segments. He was really intense. He would talk about being an ultra marathoner. He would talk about going through Hell Week with the Navy SEAL training. He would talk about never giving up. That he talks about when he's running, he's out there taking souls. He's not a fair weather runner. If he's committed to do something, he is going to do it rain or shine or snow. And he has led that life where he is committed to leveling up. And once you get there, you look for the next level up and you keep going. So I want to give you a little bit of background. And so I've pulled together a very short biography of some of the key points. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about his book, Never Finished, which is the one that I read. He also has one, I believe is titled Can't Hurt Me, which is on my list to read when I'm done my next one. And so let's start with a quick overview. So I'm going to read you some of these facts here, and I'm going to own that I'm reading it right to you because I don't have all of these things memorized, but I want to give you a little bit of a background. And I just learned that David Goggins is born in 1975, so that means I am very close to his age. So someone in our Gen X generation. And I'm curious of what generations listen to this podcast. So there's another poll question that I should put up as well. So, David Goggins is the embodiment of resilience, determination, and self mastery. Once he commits to something, he is fully on board with getting that done and will do whatever it takes to achieve that. He was born in 1975 in Buffalo, New York, and in his early years, it was marked by adversity. He was raised in a broken home, facing poverty and abuse. And he goes through and tells in the first part of the book the story of how his mother met his father. He talks about growing up in a broken home. He talks about growing up in an abusive situation and how that impacted him. He talks about his self-esteem or lack of self-esteem and how long it took him to realize that to become who you want, you really have to look within. It's not anybody external to you. You have the power to rise up within. So being raised in a broken home, facing poverty and abuse, he talks about himself being overweight. He talks about being unmotivated and lacking direction. His life, however, took a pivotal turn when he decided to join the U.S. Air Force, and he joined the Air Force Tactical Air Control at the age of 19. So during his time in the military, Goggins faced numerous challenges, including overcoming his fear of water to become a Navy SEAL. So yes, you heard that right. He is a Navy SEAL, and he had an almost paralyzing fear of the water. So he talks about how he overcame that fear in the book. And he says, despite several failed attempts, he eventually succeeded, completing the rigorous training and joined the elite ranks of the SEALs team. His journey, however, was far from over. And he goes through and he talks about going through Hell Week 3 times. He talks about all of the challenges, the health concerns that he came across, the things that he learned about himself, the people that he met that inspired him along the way. After leaving the military, Goggins struggled with depression, obesity, and lack of purpose, but rather than succumbing to his circumstances, he made a decision that would forever change his life. He committed himself to self-improvement with an unmatched, unrivaled intensity. And listening to him talk, hearing the things that he has accomplished in his life, he really, truly does have an unmatched intensity. I also have a friend on Facebook who said he was at an event with David Goggins, and after he had spoke to the conference and to all of the people there, he had a number of students or kids following him out. And before he left, he took time to actually talk to all of the people and all of the kids that had come to see him. And he said he was one of the most genuine individuals that he had met. So one day, maybe someday, I could actually interview David Goggins, but let's continue with that. So he serves in the military. He serves a full military career. And when he leaves the military, he began to struggle with depression, obesity, and a lack of purpose. But rather than succumbing to his circumstances, he made a decision that would forever change his life. And he committed himself to self-improvement with an unmatched intensity. So after this, Goggins began pushing his body to extreme limits, participating in ultra marathons, triathlons, and other endurance events. So we know the Ironman triathlon. You've probably seen that on TV. So imagine that ramped up a huge amount. Think about ultra marathons being 100-mile races. Then later on in his book, he says everybody was starting to do ultra marathons at 100 miles. So he started doing 200 miles or more, which is an amazing feat to go through and do those types of things. He also completed the infamous SEAL training known as Hell Week 3 times in 1 year, set records in endurance races, and became one of the world's toughest athletes. His journey to self-mastery wasn't just physical. Goggins transformed his mindset, embracing the discomfort and pushing through the mental barriers. He coined the concept of the 40% rule, which states that when you think you're done, you're only at 40% of your maximum potential. Through his best-selling book, Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds, and his motivational speaking, and his never-finished book that I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about, Goggins has inspired millions of people to push beyond their limits and take control of their lives. He talks about the power of accountability, of holding yourself accountable, about mental toughness, and the relentless pursuit of self-improvement. And so today, he's not just a former Navy SEAL or an ultra-endurance athlete. He's a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to accept mediocrity. And he talks about that in his book. It's easy, everybody's doing it, so you have to push beyond what everybody's doing and go the extra mile. His story serves as a testament to the transformative power of resilience, discipline, and unwavering determination. And he is a very good storyteller. So I listened to this through Audible. Audible, again, one of my favorite apps. No, I am not sponsored by Amazon, but I just find the Audible app easy to use. What I really enjoyed about this one, and I've listened to quite a few audiobooks, is that he does have someone who reads the chapters, but then at the end of the chapter, he comes back on and does a mini podcast with this podcaster, and they talk through the things that they learned in the chapter. He also has a very powerful podcast episode following one of the chapters where he talks about his mom and the decision to leave the abusive relationship that she was in and the subsequent things that happened in life. So he talks directly to his mother, and they have some conversations about life and how they saw each other and how they moved through those challenges together. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is the book Never Finished. It's called Unshackle Your Mind, Win the War. And I will link up where you can find it down below in the show notes. What I wrote to myself is this is not a book for the faint of heart. He does use some extreme language, which I think just speaks to his character and tells more of the story. But if a strong language offends you, then that may not be the read for you. But the story is absolutely amazing. And it got to the point where I had to maybe slow down when I was driving so I could listen just a little bit longer, or I'd have to play it while I was in the house because I wanted to hear how that ultra marathon went. Did he finish? Did he make it to the end? What did he do next? And so his ability to weave a story and share his life and the intensity with which he faces it is, I find, really, really interesting and inspiring. So I had written this is not your typical audiobook because it includes those mini podcast chapters at the end of each one. He also says, and this was written in 2022, on the back of the book, he says, Goggins built, not born. And he talks a number of times about not being the strongest kid, not having all of the advantages in life. He said, but you can build yourself into just about anything that you want if you are disciplined and committed to that action. And so a couple of things that stood out to me in the book, he talked about quite a few times Sergeant Jack. So a couple of things stand out. When his mother chose to leave the abusive relationship, they moved in with her parents. Her dad was Sergeant Jack. And he was very rigid in how he did things, but he expected things to be done well and to do them well the first time. And if you didn't do them well the first time, you would keep doing them until the job was done right. And so that was one of the things that stood out to me in his book. The other thing is he always talks about just taking one more step. If he's in an ultra marathon and he thinks, I can't keep going, it's just, can I take one more step? And then can I take one more step? So let's go through and take a look at some of the things that he chats about in his book. And he talks about, or you may have heard me mention the 40% rule, and he talks about the idea that when your mind is telling you that you're done, you're really only about 40% of the way to being done. Your mind likes to tell you to quit before your body will actually quit. So what you have to do, he says, is push past your mental barriers and embrace the discomfort to achieve your goals. So the other thing that he talks about is taking ownership. And so he talks about and stresses the importance of taking full responsibility for your life and for your actions, because you are the only person that can truly change your life. You can't rely on other people to do that. You can certainly be supported and surround yourself with absolutely amazing people who are going to encourage you to keep going, to work through those challenges. But you can't essentially rely on them to get you through everything. You have to build that inner mental toughness. And he says that's owning your own circumstances, no matter how difficult, and it's crucial for your personal growth and for your success. So that resonated with me in the level up. So the next thing, he calls it, sometimes you have to callous the mind. He encourages the development of mental toughness through exposure to discomfort and adversity. So he says the only way that you're going to get better is if you get out of that comfort zone. And remember when we chatted with Tiffany, she said the comfort zone is really just familiar. And sometimes it's not even good for us. It's not even comfortable. It's just familiar. And we choose to stay there because we are too afraid to step out of that comfort zone and into something else. So David Goggins talks about you have to get out of that comfort zone. You have to step out of it every day, do something that's not comfortable every day. And the only way that you're going to do that is to go through discomfort and through the adversity. You consistently face challenges. You can strengthen your mind. You can become more resilient. And you can do that and apply it to any part of your life. Now, in a future episode, we'll talk about Jane McGonigal's work, and maybe someday I can interview her. So I'm putting it out there into the world that someday I'm going to talk to the authors of these books. If you're listening out there and you have a connection, you have a favorite book that I could add to my reading list, drop a comment, and I will start to build a list of recommended books from all of you, the viewers and the listeners. The other thing that David Goggins talks about is the accountability mirror. Now, one of the things that stood out to me is he refers to himself as David Goggins, but when things need to get done, Goggins comes out. So he says that is like a beast mindset, that the intensity goes up. He is all in. He is going to get it done. There are no excuses. You get back up no matter how many times you fall. You finish what you start. And so he'll talk about himself as David Goggins, and he'll talk about himself in the Goggins mindset. So he has that double perspective, and he'll use that to motivate himself. And he says the accountability mirror means looking in the mirror and really seeing yourself, being brutally honest about who you are and what you want to become. And so I think in life, if we want to level up, we have to take a look at where we are and where we want to go. What is that future identity that we want? And then choose to shift the habits, get out of our comfort zone, and step closer and closer towards that person. It's taking one step, not changing everything in one day. Those changes aren't sustainable, but it's one small thing that you can shift now that's going to move you forward. And that's, again, the purpose of the Mind Game podcast. We are going to keep talking to different individuals and learning more about how we can level up our life. And if you have any tips as you're listening out there, or strategies or habits that have worked for you, send me an email at stephanie@mindgamelevelupyourlife.com so we can talk a little bit more about that and perhaps even have you on the show. He really emphasizes the importance of holding yourself accountable for your goals and actions. And he recognizes that we don't always get it right. We do fall down. He said, but what's important is you learn from that, you get back up, and you take that next step, and you keep leveling up towards your goals. He also talks about the alarming truth. And so he advocates for confronting the harsh realities of life, for confronting the challenges that you have rather than avoiding them. He said there is no way around them. You either have to deal with them or you're stuck in that spot. So by acknowledging and embracing the discomfort, you can break free from what he says are self-imposed limitations and achieve extraordinary things. And he has done just that. So if you are looking for someone who will inspire you, someone who will give you some tough love, because he does not mince words, he expects the same of everyone that he would expect of himself. He said people will reach out to him and want fitness advice, or they'll say that I'm starting to be an ultramarathoner. What do I need to do? And he said people don't really want his advice because he will tell you the truth. He will tell you the hard truth that you have to look inside. You have to go through those challenges and that diversity to get to where you're going. Another thing that he talks about is the uncommon amongst the uncommon. So Goggins emphasizes the importance of being extraordinary in a world where mediocrity is prevalent. He says, don't just accept the status quo. Don't just accept where you're at. Don't just think that that is the only thing that you can do. The only thing limiting you is your belief of what you can or can't do. So he says, embrace your uniqueness, strive for excellence. Just like he said he learned from Sergeant Jack, do it right the first time, put the effort in and do it right. He also talks about Captain Connolly. And when Goggins was at let me just read this so I get it right, the U.S. Air Force Air Assault School, every class when they went through the gates, sort of entering into that part, had to do a certain number of pull-ups and push-ups that were expected. And so he said people would go through, he would do the minimum and keep going. But Captain Connolly, he was a little bit older than the class going through at the time. He never did just what was expected. He always did more than what was expected, whether that was the number of pull-ups, the number of push-ups, the number of sit-ups, whatever was expected. If it was to run the distance, he would try to do it faster. He would do it better. He would always strive to go beyond what was expected, beyond the bare minimum. So David Goggins says, don't just do the minimum, do the best that you can, push yourself, get better every single time that you go out there. He references Captain Connolly several times when he's going through the training. One of the other things David Goggins talks about is living with purpose. And we've talked about purpose in previous episodes. We've talked about purpose with our guests. He believes that discovering and living in alignment with your purpose is essential for fulfillment. So you need to know what your purpose is. And I know many of us are on a search to figure out what our purpose is. And we'll dig into some conversations with people who can help us figure out what our purpose is. And he says, once you figure that out, once you decide what lights you up inside, what you want to do in this life to make a difference, he said, then you can pursue it relentlessly. And that little bit makes me think of a motivational talk that I listened to. And as I was circling around the indoor walking area, the speaker said, what is it that you want to leave behind for a legacy when your time on this planet is done? What impact do you want to have on the people that you leave behind? What impact, what legacy do you want to leave on this earth when your time is through? And he said, if you think about your purpose that way, that may help you to find the direction that you need to go. Goggins says, wherever you go with intensity, pursue that relentlessly. That's the only way you're going to level up. And the level up never ends, Goggins says. You have to keep leveling up all the time. He also talks about mental toughness over talent. He said he has never been the most talented person, but he can outwork just about anybody. He said that mental toughness is often more important than natural ability or talent. And by cultivating resilience, by cultivating perseverance, you can overcome those challenges that might otherwise seem insurmountable. So it doesn't matter if you have the most talent. What matters is what you do with that talent. And hard work beats talent every time. He also says in Never Finished that the title of the book is just like he said, he is on a continual self-improvement journey. He believes that personal growth is a lifelong journey, and there is always room to push harder, to do more, and become better. And so those are some of the foundational pieces in the book. There are so many amazing stories in there. I hope that one day I can actually talk with him in a podcast interview. A few of the quotes that I came across, and if you're someone who loves quotes, then we'll get along really, really well. I often love to have myself surrounded by quotes because they inspire me. He says, don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done. And then once you level up there, figure out your next level up and start working hard for that. He says you always need to be ready to readjust and recalibrate and stay after it to become better somehow. So not all the plans go exactly as you think they will, but keep readjusting, keep working towards that, keep moving forward. He says if you can get through the things that you hate to do, on the other side is greatness. So how often do we put off leveling up? How often do we put off doing the things that will make a difference to us, to our family, to the life that we have? Because it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. Sometimes I say this to myself. Sometimes we have to have those difficult conversations, go through that challenge head on to get to the other side, because that is where the life begins. That is where the next level up begins. This quote I really, really appreciate, and we'll talk about more in the Mind Game podcast as the level up evolves. The most important conversations you'll ever have are the ones you have with yourself. So let me say that one more time. The most important conversations you'll ever have are the ones you'll have with yourself. You are the person that talks to you most often. So think about the conversations that you're having with yourself. The book that I'm going to talk about that I'm currently reading or in the process of reading is Jim Kwik's Limitless. And he talks about ants, automatic negative thoughts. He said when we start to do something well, and that Gay Hendricks talks about it in his book in the Leap Year, Goggins talks about it. When you start to do well, your mind, when you start to approach those limits, you will start to have these negative talks. You can't do this. People aren't going to like it. What if they say something? What if you are too much? What if this doesn't work? What if you fall? What if you fail? And those automatic negative thoughts, if you listen to them, shift you back to where you are. They are your subconscious talking to you. They are designed to keep you in that comfort zone because the subconscious perceives that as safe because it's familiar. The subconscious doesn't like anything that's unfamiliar. So if you want to create a new level up for your subconscious. You have to actively get out of that zone and push past those ants. So those automatic negative thoughts. And Jim Kwik talks about if you can recognize those automatic negative thoughts, you can start to flip them, you can start to rephrase them, and as David Goggins would say, you can go through them and keep going. The other thing that I really appreciate in this quotation is incremental progress is still progress. One step is all that's required to take the next one. And he talks about being on the ultramarathon journey and hundreds of miles into the race and starting to feel like he couldn't keep going. But when he got to that point, he just kept thinking, one more step. I can do one more step. And so whether you apply that to life and the journey that you're on, whether you apply that to your workout, when I think just one more rep, one more lunge, one more squat, one more row, one more. If I can do one more than I thought I could, that builds your mental toughness. That builds your resilience. That starts to rebuild your belief that you can do hard things. So incremental progress is still progress. This one, he says, whatever it takes for you to believe that you're better than good enough to achieve your dreams is what you must do. And remember, your greatness is not tied to any outcome. It is found in the valiance of the attempt. So keep going. It's not that you achieve that outcome. It's that you set out to do what you wanted to do. It's that you put one foot in front of the other to do that. It's that you made progress towards that goal. You can get back up. You can try again. But the valiance, the win is that you did it, that you put everything you had into that, because nobody can fault you for giving it everything that you have. The greatness is not tied to an outcome. It's tied to the valiance of your attempt. And that reminds me of a Brené Brown quote about the man in the arena. And the credit goes to the man in the arena, the one with dust and blood on his face, the one that is battling it out, not to the spectators in the crowd who are making those comments. And I know Brené Brown phrases that much better. And I believe the quote comes from Teddy Roosevelt. He says the type of job that you do, and he doesn't use that phrasing, but he says if you're only putting in half the work, and if that doesn't bother you, that you're just giving it the bare minimum and you're not really even trying, he said it speaks volumes about the kind of person you are. And until you start feeling a sense of pride and self-respect in the work that you do, no matter how small or overlooked those jobs might be, you will continue to do the same in your life. And Jim Kwik said the same thing as I was driving home today. He said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. How teams practice is how they play. How you show up. And I believe one of the quotes that I came across related to sports was, the trophies are not won on the court. They are won in practice. They are just claimed. They are just brought home when they are on the court. But all of that practice makes all of the difference. Here's one that related to what I said earlier. We can't rely on others to get us where we need to be. You have the power within. You can choose to get started. You can choose to connect yourself and surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up. You can choose to read books like this, listen to books, listen to and feed your brain healthy things, whether that's healthy food, that certainly helps. And we'll talk to Amy again about different nutrition ideas for fueling your brain, for powering up. But you can power up your brain, build your resilience, and help to change what your horizons look like by what you feed into your head for what you're learning. So always continue learning. He says mental toughness and resilience fade if they aren't used consistently. He says you are either getting better or you're getting worse. You're not staying the same. So the comfort zone isn't staying there. It's going backwards. It's stopping you from reaching your potential. Goggins goes on to say, it is a lifelong quest for more knowledge, more courage, more humility, and more belief. Because when you summon the strength and the discipline to live like that, the only thing limiting your horizons is you. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about some of the things that I read. This book is by David Goggins. It is called Never Finished, Unshackle Your Mind and Win the War Within. One of my favorite reads, 2022, 2023, 24 so far. So one of the things that I wanted to share was the next book that I'm reading. I read Never Finished a little while ago. I started into Jim Kwik, started listening to Jim Kwik's book, Limitless. And basically the premise of Limitless, and Jim Kwik is a world-renowned brain coach and memory expert. He talks about in the beginning of the book how as a child, he was at school. I believe there was either fire trucks or something pulled up outside when he was in kindergarten. They all ran to the window, but he couldn't see. So he saw other people in the room putting chairs on top of the tables and standing on those chairs so they could see outside and see all of the amazing things that were happening and see the firefighters arrive. And he said what happened was he put the chair on the table. He stood on that chair, and then somebody accidentally bumped the table and he fell because the chair wasn't really that safe up there. And he hit his head and he had severe brain injury. And he said after that, learning became really, really hard. He said he struggled. He said people referred to him as the kid with the broken brain. And he said he tried to go to college and he said he was struggling so much because it was hard to read. It was hard to remember information. So he was in college and he was really at a really low point, and one of his friends invited him to come home with him for the weekend. And so he said he talked with his friend's dad, and his friend's dad said, "You are this close." And the space that he was referring to was the width of his head. He said, "You are this close to greatness. You have the ability." And he said, "But I have this brain injury and learning is hard." And what his friend's dad told him was that there are ways to learn. There are different strategies and tactics that you can use to help your brain. And so he has become a brain coach and memory expert. And in the book, Limitless, he shares a variety of different strategies and techniques. He has some quick studies, some level ups that you can do to train your brain so that you can improve your ability to learn. One of the things that interested me, and we'll have to have a technology conversation on the podcast because technology and digital and social media and all of those things really interest me. But he says the central premise of the book revolves around the idea that everyone has the ability to learn faster, remember more, and achieve greater success if you know how to harness the power of your brain. So he offers very practical tips, and all of the habits that he's suggesting, the strategies he's suggesting, he has ways to remember them. He has healthy foods for you to eat. So he talks about memory improvement. He talks about speed reading. I haven't got to that part yet. Could certainly learn how to speed read. He talks about learning strategies, focus and concentration. He talks about the power of mindset in achieving your success and overcoming mental barriers. And he also talks about brain health. So what you eat, staying hydrated. He talks about the brain is a very high percentage of water, and even just sleeping overnight, respiration. So breathing in and out. I just hit my microphone. So even respiration, breathing in and out, causes you to lose a certain amount of water. The more dehydrated you are, it slows your brain function down. So if you are dehydrated, you don't have all of your cells don't have what they need. And so that will impact your ability to learn. That will impact your ability to focus. And again, the strategies that he shared so far in the book are very straightforward, very practical. If you're curious about hearing some more of those, let me know, and I'll pick out a few of those to share on future episodes. Maybe one day we can also talk to Jim Kwik. So those are all on my list of amazing individuals that I'd like to talk to. And again, his book, it's all designed to provide actionable strategies with tools that you can use right away to level up your life. So thank you so much for joining me on part 2 of this episode. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing about a current book that I'm reading, one that I listened to. And so thanks so much for joining me on the journey of what are you learning? Because it's not just about what you're reading. I'm reading this one, the actual hard copy, not just the digital copy. I'm also reading or listening to Limitless by Jim Kwik, and I just finished David Goggins' Never Finished book. And you're probably wondering, do I read for fun? I kind of follow what Angie shared with us when she was talking about the number of books that she had on the go. I usually in the evening try to read right before I go to bed. I try to read something that's fiction that is not going to keep me awake at night unless it's really good. And then I have to keep reading. But during the day, I like to be able to pick up the book and read or listen to a podcast or listen to a motivational app. My favorite thing is learning. And so that's why I'm here to connect you with the things and the people you didn't know you needed to meet and the things you didn't know you needed to know. So I hope you find this podcast helpful. huge shout out to all of my regular listeners and viewers and all of the people who are sharing these episodes on social media and recommending them to your friends. I very much appreciate your support and your encouragement. So until next time, mind the game so you can level up your life. Thanks for listening. And that's what I'm learning. Thank you for joining me as we take a closer look at David Goggins' book, Never Finished. Here are a few of my favorite takeaways for this episode, and I'm curious, do these match what you learned from this episode? Number 1, the ultimate level up. The journey to personal growth begins with a decision to step out of our comfort zone, or the spot where we're familiar, to put one foot in front of the other as we work through the challenge and appreciate the learning along the way. Remembering incremental progress is still progress. You just have to keep going. But to keep going, you have to be brave enough to decide to start, to decide to take action. David Goggins' unyielding determination. His life story is a testament to what relentless hard work, discipline, and mental toughness can achieve. His book, Never Finished, is a powerful reminder that we are capable of overcoming any adversity. It's you versus you. Embracing discomfort, or as my friend Katie would say, constructive discomfort. To level up in life, we must push past our mental barriers and face discomfort head on. Goggins' 40% rule teaches us that we often underestimate our own capacities and that true growth occurs outside our comfort zone. The life that you are looking for is on the other side of the hard work. Or as in a quote that I heard and I've mentioned before, the magic is in the mess that you are avoiding. Accountability and self-mastery, taking full responsibility for our actions and holding ourselves accountable is crucial for personal development. Goggins' journey illustrates the importance of being brutally honest with ourselves to achieve our goals. If you want to get to your goal, you have to get out of your own way. What's the story that you're telling yourself? And lastly, we looked at Jim Kwik's book, Limitless. Jim Kwik's teachings remind us of the power of the mind and the importance of continuous learning and brain health for achieving a limitless potential. And if you're curious about more of the tips that Jim Kwik suggests, be sure to stay tuned to future episodes for more information. The level up is setting a direction. It's committing to move forward one step at a time and understanding that each level up is a stepping stone to the next evolution. Until next time, remember to mind the game so you can level up your life. Thanks for listening. Here's your episode 22 Mind Game Challenge. Share this episode along with one thing you are learning. Hashtag it, level up your life.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights, inspiration, and habits shared in this episode. Your support is a game changer, and we are incredibly grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing community of listeners. If you have any wonders, questions, or suggestions about this or future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media and share your feedback. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring valuable content to you, our listeners. Don't want to miss the next episode? Join our Facebook group and email list and get ahead of the game. Until next time, remember to mind the game so that you can get out of your own way and level up your life.